When people hear of the Legion of Boom, they think of Richard Sherman, Earl Thomas, and Cam Chancellor. But whatever happened to the 6'4" corner out of Oregon State, who not only played alongside those guys, but was a contributing factor to what we know as the Legion of Boom? Brandon Browner's football career is crazy, and although the people who remember him most likely remember him from his time on the Seahawks, he has contributed and had success with other organizations. In this video, we take a deep dive into the life and football journey of Brandon Browner. Guys, if you like the video, please like and share it, as that helps the channel to grow. Now let's get into the video. Brandon played high school ball at Sylmar High School in Sylmar, California, and as you might have guessed, he did play receiver. During his time at Sylmar, he racked up 1,726 receiving yards and 26 touchdowns. On the other side of the ball, he hauled in 16 interceptions. To add to his already crazy production, he was the punt returner for his team, and in his senior year, he took 3 punts to the house. After a very successful and productive high school career, Brandon received a scholarship to Oregon State, and that's where he decided to go. He also mentioned that he was the first person in his family to go to college, so I thought that was pretty cool. He decided to redshirt his freshman year in 2002, but the next year he made a huge impact. Dude started in every game as a redshirt freshman and balled out. He racked up 43 tackles, with 37 of those being solo, along with 6 interceptions, 6 pass deflections, 3 tackles for loss, and 2 forced fumbles. So obviously a great freshman season to have, and it would be reflected by the accolades that he would receive that year. Those accolades include being named a freshman All-American, second team All-Pac-10, and he was the Pac-10 Freshman of the Year. Now mind you, that he did all of this as a 6'4" corner, and that makes everything he did even more impressive, because if you're able to move and dominate at corner at 6'4", then you're doing something right. Moving on to his sophomore season, he continued his dominance with a great second season. He recorded 44 tackles, with 37 of those being solo, 9 pass deflections, a sack, and a blocked kick. Because of his performance, he became an All-American that year and was first team All-Pac-10. Like I said, a great sophomore season to have, especially coming off the great freshman season that he had had a year prior. So after that season, he would actually end up leaving Oregon State and declaring for the 2005 NFL Draft. Unfortunately, he would go undrafted, but later signed with the Broncos as an undrafted free agent. His time in Denver didn't last long, however, due to an injury that he suffered in that 2005 season against the 49ers. What actually happened is that he fractured his left forearm and was placed on IR for the remainder of the season. And then in July of 2006, he ended up being waived by the Broncos completely. I do want to mention that the Broncos had Brandon playing safety, and I'm not saying that's the reason why his time in Denver didn't go as planned, but that is a huge switch for any player, and people look at DB and safety and say they're pretty similar, so you can switch between them, but they're two completely different positions. I feel like safety, you need more of a football IQ, because you have to read the offense, you have to call out what coverages the secondary is going to run, you're responsible for coming up and making tackles if the running back breaks through, you're supposed to do zone coverage, man coverage. I feel like it's a really hard position, and people see safety and corner like right next to each other on the field and just assume that it's basically the same position. So yeah, they probably just moved Brandon to safety because of his 6'4" size. They saw that and were probably like, yeah, we can move this dude to safety and he'll do okay. But he ended up being injured and, just didn't go as planned. So since the NFL didn't work out, Brandon decided to showcase his talents in the CFL, where his career took off. He signed with the Calgary Stampede in 2007 and played with them until 2010. I'm not going to go over every season individually just because they're very similar, but I will point out a few key things. In his first 2 years, he had over 70 tackles in both years and 4 total interceptions, with one of those being a pick 6. To add on to that, in 2008, his team actually won the Grey Cup, which is basically the Canadian Super Bowl if you don't already know, and Brandon was a huge part of that team since that year he was named a CFL All-Star. In his next and last 2 seasons with the Stampede, he had a slight dip in tackles but made up for it by hauling in 8 total interceptions. As you can see, he was continuing his dominance from the previous 2 years and was actually named a CFL All-Star in that 2009 year, which meant he had back-to-back CFL All-Star selections under his belt. After a great CFL career in which Brandon proved he could be productive, he earned a contract with the Seattle Seahawks and signed with them in 2010. Now, he signed with the Seahawks at the perfect time because there were 3 other players who had just become Seahawks at that same time by the name of Richard Sherman, Earl Thomas, and Cam Chancellor. This secondary of course formed what we know as the Legion of Boom. It really was perfect because although Brandon was a little older than these guys, they all joined Seattle at around the same time. Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor were going into their second year in Seattle, and Richard Sherman had just been drafted in the 2010 draft, so he was a rookie. Going back to Brandon, he more than showed he was worthy of that Seattle contract, since he racked up 54 total tackles, with 51 of those being solo, along with 6 interceptions, and 2 of those he took back for a pick 6. Again, a great season to have, and he put an exclamation point on it with a Pro Bowl. His other teammates also had a great season, since Richard Sherman was named to the PFWA All-Rookie team, Cam Chancellor was also a Pro Bowler, and Earl Thomas was as well a Pro Bowler and second team All-Pro. So to think that in 2011 the entire Seahawks secondary, besides Richard Sherman, just because he was a rookie, was named to the Pro Bowl is pretty crazy. As great as that was, it didn't really even end up mattering because the Seahawks missed the playoffs altogether that year. However, after a great season by the guys I just mentioned, people knew that the Seahawks would turn into a consistent playoff team. Going back to Brandon, if we look at his 2012 season, you can see that he had a slightly worse year, but still contributed a good bit. He ended the season with 44 tackles, 3 interceptions, 3 forced fumbles, and a fumble recovery. A pretty good season once again, but compared to the year before, we knew he was capable of doing more. But it was a great turnaround season for the team, since they went 11-5 and made the playoffs. They then unfortunately lost to the Falcons in the divisional round, but to go from 7-9 to 11-5 is always a great turnaround season, and they were building their case as Super Bowl contenders. On to the next season, which was 2013. Brandon would unfortunately only end up playing 8 games this year because halfway through the season, he suffered a groin tear which made him miss the last half of the year. In those 8 games, he would only have 19 tackles, 10 pass deflections, and an interception. Not that great of a season for Brandon, but something he definitely was happy about is that his team were Super Bowl champions that year, so he does have a ring. However, after the 2013 season, Brandon was suspended for a year after he abused the NFL's substance abuse policy because he smoked weed. This was actually his second offense because his first one was during the 2013 season and it was for the same thing, but that one only got him a 4-week suspension, and now that he had done it twice, he was suspended for an entire year. So naturally, the Seahawks released him after all this had gone down, but the Patriots picked him up for the 2014 season. Because of his suspension, he did have to miss the first 4 games of the season, but still put together an okay amount of production. He had 25 tackles, with 20 of those being solo, 7 pass deflections, and an interception. Again, an okay season. After that year, he actually left the Patriots and got picked up by the Saints. And when he got picked up by the Saints, he had the most tackles that he'd ever had in his entire career. Mind you that he was 31 at this time, so that makes it even more impressive. He ended the season with 76 tackles, 63 of those being solo, an interception, and a fumble recovery. However, although he had the highest tackle total of his whole career, he was ranked as one of the least efficient cornerbacks in the entire NFL, and had the most penalties than any other player in the entire league. When I saw that he was ranked as one of the least efficient cornerbacks in the entire NFL, I was curious to see just how low he was, and I found a list that Bleacher Report made, and they actually ranked him 101 out of 101 corners that year. So he was literally, by Bleacher Report's list, the least efficient cornerback in the entire NFL that year. So that's pretty crazy. Moving along, Brandon got released by the Saints after this year, but got picked up by the Seahawks for the 2016 season after he signed the veteran minimum deal, which was $760,000. This led to nothing, and he ended up getting released by the Seahawks after the team's 3rd preseason game. Fast forward to 2018, he would actually join the American Flag Football League and was a part of the Roadrunners, which was the team led by Michael Vick. This brings us to what would happen in July of 2018, which would change Brandon's life forever. In July of 2018, Brandon would unfortunately be arrested and charged with 4 felonies, along with attempted murder and 2 misdemeanors. Basically what happened is that Brandon broke into his ex-girlfriend's house and threatened to kill her while her children were present. This is obviously a horrible thing to happen, and I don't even know what the motivation behind this was. According to the article, he had actually gotten into this kind of trouble before and had been arrested earlier that year for domestic violence, along with burglary, robbery, false imprisonment, and child endangerment. Obviously, this is not a good look at all for Brandon, and he was sentenced to 8 years in prison for his crimes. 8 years back in 2018, which means he's supposed to get out around sometime in 2026. Honestly, my hope for him for when he gets out is that he's able to get a good job and just stay on the right path without getting into any more trouble. Brandon Browner's football story and life is more than unique, and although he had his issues at times, he proved what he was capable of. Regardless of the trouble that he got into, he still had a great NFL career that he should be proud of, along with a Super Bowl ring. Alright guys, that's gonna do it for this video. Again, if you enjoyed it, please like and share it as that helps the channel to grow. Besides that, until next time.